They had watched Earth for many years. From high above the clouds, far beyond the reach of any human telescope, a group of alien observers quietly studied the blue planet that glowed like a small jewel in the darkness. They saw cities filled with noise, oceans full of life, and skies burning with aircraft that still used fire and fuel to move. To them, it all looked primitive, even charming in a strange way. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, a decision had been made long ago. Earth, the small planet orbiting a yellow star, was no danger. The files written about it carried a simple label: low threat. That meant harmless, unimportant, not worth attention. For the Council, which ruled thousands of worlds and commanded fleets larger than anything humans could imagine, Earth was just another young species learning how to stand. They saw a race divided by borders and beliefs, fighting over land, money, and ideas. They saw people struggling with energy shortages, climate troubles, and endless political arguments. To the Council's eyes, humanity looked weak and confused. They had seen species like this before, species that fought among themselves until they vanished. So the Council's scanners and probes moved on to other worlds, ignoring Earth as nothing more than a small, unstable dot in the map of the stars. But what they did not understand was something no data could measure. Human weakness was only half the story. The other half was what the Council never saw: the strange power that came from pain, from survival, from standing up after every fall. It was a power that lived quietly inside the hearts of the people below the clouds. For centuries, humanity had been told it was fragile. Every disaster proved it. Yet somehow, after every flood, every war, every loss, the species rebuilt itself. They fought nature, disease, and even each other. But they never stopped moving forward. That restless spirit became something the Council's machines could not predict or record. When the Galactic Council reviewed its reports on Earth, their analysts saw numbers, not hearts. They saw that humans still burned fossil fuels, still used chemical rockets, and still argued about which nation should lead. Their computers ran the calculations and predicted that Earth would need at least 1,000 years to become even a minor power in the galaxy. So they wrote the words that would become their mistake. No threat detected, but far below the surface of that quiet blue world, humans were building things the galaxy didn't know about. In deep bunkers hidden beneath mountains, inside old research facilities buried under sand, a few secret projects continued long after the wars that had once created them. They were small at first, just quiet experiments led by scientists who feared what might come from the stars. For years, the people who worked there were ignored, their funding cut, their existence forgotten by the governments that once needed them. But they never stopped. They had seen the sky light up with strange signals. They had seen shadows move across telescopes that couldn't be explained, and they had read the data that hinted Earth wasn't alone, so they began to prepare. At first, the idea was simple: build protection in case of contact. But over time, those small ideas grew into something vast. They built underground labs powered by the planet's own heat. They hid their experiments inside old mines, deep under ice sheets and far beneath the seafloor. They called their hidden network Aegis. No one outside the circle knew it existed. Not presidents, not generals, not the people in charge of space agencies. Aegis moved quietly, learning from every global crisis. When war broke out, they studied human behavior. When peace returned, they learned how to hide technology inside everyday systems. They took lessons from failure and turned them into strength. When the rest of the world focused on profits, Aegis focused on survival. They built things that were never recorded. Power systems that could run for decades without sunlight, materials that could heal from damage, and small silent crafts that could move without leaving a signal behind. To anyone looking from space, Earth still looked the same, imperfect, noisy, and fragile. But beneath the crust, something entirely new was forming. The Galactic Council never saw it. Their scanners only picked up what they expected to find. To them, Earth's radio waves and television signals were proof of a young species just learning to speak. They didn't realize those same signals sometimes carried hidden codes meant for no one but Aegis. And then came the mistake, the one observation that changed everything. A Council probe, small and unarmed, passed too close to Earth. Its purpose was simple: to collect new biological samples and energy readings. It had done this hundreds of times on other worlds without being noticed. But Earth was different. The probe's signal flickered as it entered the planet's magnetic field. It should have corrected itself automatically, but something interfered. A wave of energy pulsed from deep beneath Antarctica, where Aegis had built one of its earliest research vaults. To the world's scientists, it looked like a natural phenomenon, a small magnetic storm. But inside the vault, old machines that had been sleeping for years suddenly woke up. Systems long forgotten began scanning the sky, and they found it. The probe's cloaking failed for less than a second, but that was enough. Aegis detected it, locked on, and sent out a silent ping. The probe, designed to be invisible, suddenly realized it was being watched. For the first time in centuries, the watchers became the watched. No weapon was fired. But in that single moment, everything changed. The Council received a report from the probe. 2 simple words that made every analyst pause. They see us. At first, they thought it was an error. Earth couldn't possibly have technology advanced enough to detect their stealth systems. But the data didn't lie. The probe's sensors showed that Earth had scanned it, measured its energy, and then went silent. It was like being stared at by something that chose not to attack, just to let you know it could. The Council ordered another review. The analysts went back through every old report, every file, every number. The more they looked, the more strange patterns they found. Hidden energy spikes in certain regions, small changes in the planet's heat output, and signals buried inside normal communication bands. Something didn't add up. Meanwhile, down on Earth, the people of Aegis watched the skies with quiet satisfaction. Their sensors confirmed the alien presence, but they didn't panic. They had trained for this moment all their lives. They knew the day would come when the universe would look back. In underground halls lit by cold blue lights, a few silent figures stood before massive screens showing the stars. They didn't cheer, and they didn't make speeches. They only whispered a truth they had known all along. Humanity was no one's experiment, no one's servant, no one's easy prey. The world above had no idea what had happened. People continued their daily lives, working, dreaming, arguing, and hoping, unaware that a quiet war of observation had already begun. The Council's report spread quickly among its members. Some dismissed it as a glitch. Others argued it proved Earth was more advanced than expected. The military commanders were the most nervous. If a low-threat species could detect a cloaked probe, what else could they do? The question was whispered across fleets and colonies. What are they hiding beneath that planet's surface? No one in the Council could answer. Their sensors could not pierce the deep layers of rock and ocean that shielded Aegis. Every attempt to scan deeper ended in failure. It was as if Earth itself was refusing to be read. And so, for the first time, the Galactic Council began to fear the one world they had ignored. Down below, the humans continued to prepare not for war, but for the day when truth would rise to the surface. They didn't know when it would happen, but they knew the galaxy would come. And when it did, Earth would be ready. The label low threat still sat on the Council's official files, but even the youngest analysts could feel the truth pressing against it. The numbers no longer matched reality. Something powerful was moving on that blue world. Something old, patient, and quietly waiting. Above the clouds, the watchers hesitated to come closer. Below the crust, the humans waited for the day when the galaxy would finally see what had been hidden all along. The galaxy called Earth a low threat. They would soon learn how wrong they were. For a long time after the strange event near Antarctica, the world above continued as if nothing had happened. People still went to work. Traffic still filled the cities, and satellites still sent signals into space. But under the surface, deep inside the hidden bases of Aegis, things had changed. The quiet detection of that alien probe had confirmed every fear the organization had carried for decades. Humanity wasn't alone anymore, and worse, they had been watched for years. No one outside their circle could even imagine it, but Aegis knew that the galaxy had eyes, and now those eyes had blinked. Inside one of the underground halls, screens showed endless streams of data. The magnetic readings from the polar event still replayed again and again. It wasn't just a coincidence. Something had entered Earth's field and something had left, but it wasn't the same. The signal that escaped had changed, as if the probe had been shaken by what it saw. Aegis had a decision to make. For years they had lived in shadows, building quietly and staying hidden even from their own people. Now they had proof of life beyond Earth. The question wasn't if the galaxy knew about them. It was how much the galaxy already knew. They debated whether to reveal the truth to world leaders. But they all knew what would happen if they did. Fear would spread. Governments would panic. Nations would start building weapons they didn't understand. History had shown what fear could do to humanity. It made them destroy what they didn't control. So Aegis stayed silent. They decided to prepare instead of reveal. The message they had detected from the alien craft, those 3 words, "They see us," was more than a warning. It was a challenge. It told them that the galaxy had underestimated Earth, and now that mistake couldn't be undone. But the people of Aegis were not soldiers. Most of them were engineers, scientists, and thinkers. They didn't want war. They wanted to make sure that when the universe came calling, humanity would not kneel in fear. Work began again, faster than ever before. Hidden factories buried under mountains restarted production. Research centers once shut down for being too dangerous came alive again. They tested silent propulsion systems, gravity-based shields, and defensive satellites that could vanish into the darkness above the atmosphere. Every system was built not to attack, but to survive. Meanwhile, in the far corners of space, the Galactic Council was in confusion. Reports about Earth began to circulate quietly. The small blue world once called harmless was now being questioned. Some said the reading from the probe was just a data error. Others whispered that humans had somehow broken into technology they shouldn't even understand yet. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Voices were raised. Some argued that the Council should leave Earth alone completely. Let the primitive world destroy itself, they said. Others argued that anything capable of detecting advanced stealth tech was not primitive at all. Few feared that the Council had already made a dangerous mistake by ignoring Earth for so long, but the biggest question remained unanswered. How did humans do it? No one had an explanation. The Council's scanners couldn't read what lay under Earth's surface. Their deep scans were blocked by something strange, layers of interference that looked like natural geological noise but weren't. Every time they tried to send stronger pulses, the readings came back distorted. It was like the planet itself was protecting its secrets. On Earth, Aegis had noticed those scans. Their defense grid had evolved beyond human design. It was now part machine, part organic intelligence. The system didn't just defend against physical threats. It listened, learned, and adapted. Whenever an unknown signal tried to pierce the crust, the grid reflected it back, bending the data until it looked harmless. Aegis called it the mirror. The mirror had one purpose: to make sure the rest of the galaxy saw only what Aegis wanted them to see. The world above continued to look messy and divided, full of chaos and conflict, but that too was part of the illusion. Hidden among the noise of humanity's arguments and distractions, Aegis had found the perfect camouflage. As months passed, the Council began sending small ships near Earth again. None dared to enter the atmosphere. They simply orbited in the shadows, scanning, watching, trying to understand what went wrong. But Earth was quiet. No answers came. In one of those underground control rooms, the people of Aegis watched the alien ships move silently in orbit. Their faces stayed calm. There was no fear anymore, only focus. They had seen the Watchers return, but they also knew those Watchers couldn't see them back. Humanity's advantage was simple. While the galaxy saw technology as perfection, humans saw it as a tool. The Council built systems that couldn't fail, but humans built systems that could adapt. That difference was small, but it was everything. On other worlds, technology obeyed. On Earth, it evolved with the people who used it. Still, Aegis knew curiosity could turn into danger. If the Council decided that Earth was unpredictable, they might take action to control it. So Aegis prepared for the possibility of contact. Not peaceful, but forced. They sent silent beacons to distant points in the solar system, mapping every path a foreign ship might take. They turned the moon's dark side into a listening post. And they built something even the Council would never expect. A vessel hidden beneath the ocean, capable of leaving the planet without being seen. It wasn't a battleship. It was something entirely new, made to travel unseen through gravity itself. As construction continued, a quiet understanding spread among those working for Aegis. They had become the secret guardians of a world that didn't even know it was in danger. The ordinary people above the surface lived freely, never realizing that their safety depended on the silent Watchers below. And that was how Aegis wanted it. Above them, the alien observers started arguing again. Their instruments showed strange signals from Earth's magnetic field, occasional bursts of unknown energy that appeared and vanished like flashes of lightning. Some thought it was natural. Others thought it was testing. The longer they watched, the more they realized the danger wasn't Earth's weapons, it was Earth's unpredictability. Humans did not follow patterns. They could be chaotic, irrational, emotional, but that same emotion gave them something the galaxy had forgotten long ago: instinct. The Council had spent centuries perfecting control, removing risk, and building order. Humanity, on the other hand, had survived by facing disaster after disaster and refusing to give up. The galaxy had peace, but Earth had resilience, and resilience is not something you can measure. In time, more alien probes were sent. Some returned data, some never came back. The ones that vanished were quietly erased from the Council's archives to avoid panic. But deep down, the fear had already started. A few voices began to whisper that maybe, just maybe, Earth wasn't what it seemed. Back on the planet, life continued as usual. Children went to school, workers hurried to their jobs, and space agencies still dreamed of reaching Mars. Humanity looked as ordinary as ever. That was the beauty of it. Aegis had ensured that the illusion would never break until the right moment came. The people of Aegis weren't heroes or villains. They were simply human, afraid, hopeful, determined to protect what was theirs. They didn't build their defenses to conquer anyone. They built them because they knew what it meant to be small in a universe full of giants. They had learned one truth the Council had forgotten: survival doesn't always belong to the strongest. It belongs to those who refuse to fall. In the quiet hours of the night when the world above slept, Aegis continued to listen. They could hear the faint hum of alien transmissions echoing through the atmosphere, like whispers in the dark. They knew the galaxy would come again, and when it did, Earth would not greet it with fear but with quiet confidence. Somewhere beneath the mountains, one of the senior engineers looked up at the glowing map of the sky. Tiny dots of light marked every alien signal that had ever touched the planet. He said nothing, but the thought was clear in every mind present. If the galaxy believed humanity was weak, then let it keep believing that. Because the strongest kind of power was the kind that stayed unseen until the very last moment. And so, the Watchers watched the Watchers. The sky stayed quiet, but tension grew, stretching like the calm before a storm. The galaxy called Earth a low threat, but even the stars could feel it. The silence before something incredible was about to awaken. The night sky looked peaceful from the surface of Earth. The stars shone quietly and the moon floated like a calm watcher. People across the world looked up at it, never realizing that beyond that peaceful glow, invisible ships were watching back. In hidden command rooms deep under the ground, Aegis had eyes on everything that moved above the planet. Every object entering orbit, every unknown pulse, every small shift in gravity was recorded. The Earth's governments believed they controlled their skies, but the truth was different. Aegis saw much more. After the strange signals and missing alien probes, the organization knew it couldn't stay passive anymore. Something had to change. The galaxy was growing restless, and sooner or later they would come closer. Aegis needed to know what it was truly facing, so a plan was born. Instead of waiting for the next probe, they decided to send their own message into space, but not openly. Not through radio signals that everyone could hear. Their message would be silent, hidden inside a natural pulse of the Earth's magnetic field. It would look like a random echo, but it would travel across space, reaching the same frequencies the alien watchers used. The purpose of the message wasn't to threaten anyone. It was simple, to say, "We know you're there." In a large circular chamber, the pulse generator hummed quietly. The walls were covered in metal that absorbed every stray vibration. A few engineers stood at their stations watching the readings carefully. One of them gave a quiet signal. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The ground trembled for a heartbeat so faint that no one on the surface could feel it. The machine released a pulse of energy that rose through the layers of rock, through the air, through the clouds, and into the cold silence of space. To anyone listening from afar, it sounded like a ripple in the cosmic background noise, a brief, meaningless wave. But to the alien observers, the message was clear. Someone had spoken back. For the first time, Earth had replied. The reaction across the Galactic Council was immediate. The first stations to detect the signal were confused. They ran it through their filters expecting natural interference. But the rhythm, the pattern, it was intentional. It was a message built with purpose. Reports flooded the central chamber of the council. The same phrase repeated across multiple systems. The low-threat world has responded. Panic followed curiosity. The council's leaders gathered in silence. Many of them had seen species rise before, but none had ever done so unnoticed for so long. They debated endlessly. How had Earth hidden its growth? How did such a small planet develop signal precision strong enough to mimic their own communication lines? They didn't realize that it wasn't just technology. It was human will. Back on Earth, the people of Aegis watched the data come back. Their message had been received. It was subtle, but they saw changes in the readings. Alien transmissions had shifted frequency. That meant someone, somewhere, was listening very carefully. It was both exciting and terrifying. They had confirmed what they feared. The galaxy wasn't ignoring Earth anymore. But the question was, what would happen next? Days passed quietly, then weeks. Then one night a new reading appeared. Something massive was moving toward the solar system. It wasn't fast, but it was steady. The readings were faint like a whisper from the edge of space, but there was no doubt. It was artificial. Aegis had been preparing for this moment for years. They activated silent defenses, systems that didn't show up on any radar. Hidden satellites positioned themselves in perfect formation. Deep below the ocean, long-range scanners turned toward the stars. The incoming ship wasn't a fleet. It was a single vessel, most likely a research craft sent to confirm what had happened. The council wanted answers before taking any action. They thought one ship would be enough to study a small, harmless planet. They still didn't understand Earth. Weeks later, the alien craft reached the edge of the solar system. It slowed down near the orbit of Pluto, scanning from a distance. Its instruments tried to map every electromagnetic wave, every gravitational pulse, every sign of civilization. The people of Aegis monitored everything silently. The world's regular satellites didn't even notice, but Aegis's sensors caught the movement like a shadow gliding through light. Instead of attacking or hiding, Aegis made a different choice. They wanted to see how much the alien ship could see. So they began to test it. They created false signals, echoes that looked like normal human broadcasts, filled with news, music, and ordinary voices. The alien ship picked them up easily, recording what it believed was the real state of Earth. It saw a divided planet full of noise and confusion, just like before. But underneath that layer of noise, Aegis embedded something else, a pattern hidden inside the sound waves. It wasn't a message in words. It was a structure of numbers that repeated in perfect sequence, something no random human transmission could create by accident. If the aliens were smart enough, they would find it. And when they did, they would know for sure that Earth was aware of them. The alien craft recorded everything and began transmitting the data back to the council. When their scientists decoded the signals, they saw the repeating pattern and froze. The pattern wasn't just intelligent. It was precise enough to challenge their encryption models. A single small planet had managed to send a mathematical message that only the council's most advanced systems could fully decode. It was impossible. It was frightening. And it forced the council to admit something they had never said aloud. Earth could no longer be treated as a low threat. They called an emergency meeting. For the first time in hundreds of years, the great chambers of the Galactic Council were silent. The representatives of countless species sat in disbelief as they listened to the analysis. The conclusion was simple but unsettling. The humans were not as weak as they seemed. Some suggested that Earth had stolen technology from older species. Others said the humans had made contact with outsiders long ago. No one could believe that such intelligence had evolved naturally on such a small world. One voice among them said softly, "If they've learned to hide this long, what else are they hiding?" No one answered. Back on Earth, Aegis watched their plan unfold. The alien ship had retreated slightly, no longer moving closer. It was still watching, but with caution now. That small change told Aegis everything they needed to know. The galaxy had started to fear Earth, but fear wasn't the goal. They didn't want war. They only wanted respect. A silent promise that if anyone ever came to attack, they would think twice before doing so. In their hidden meeting chambers, the leaders of Aegis spoke quietly about the future. They knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy's curiosity wouldn't stop. The Council would send more ships. They would send questions, maybe even envoys one day. So Aegis began to prepare for something bigger, not just defense, but revelation. If the galaxy wanted to see Earth, then one day Earth would show itself, but on its own terms. For now, the world above remained normal. People argued about politics, dreamed of fame, and struggled with daily life. None of them knew their small blue planet had already changed its place in the universe. In the skies above, the alien ship turned away slowly, its mission incomplete. It sent one final report before leaving Earth's orbit. The message reached the Council weeks later. It contained a single haunting line: "They are awake." That simple message spread through the galaxy like a storm. Rumors began to rise among distant colonies and travelers. Stories of the hidden humans, the quiet world that had fooled the Council, the species that could hide its power even while seeming weak. And far away, in one of Earth's secret chambers, the people of Aegis watched the alien ship disappear into the dark. They didn't celebrate. They didn't speak. They only stood in silence, knowing that the moment of discovery had passed and the real test was still to come. Because now, the galaxy knew Earth could see back. It was no longer a question of if they would come again. It was only a matter of when, and when they did, the humans would be ready. The planet that had been called a low threat had finally spoken, not through words but through the quiet, unstoppable power of human will. And somewhere deep beneath the ground, the hidden machines of Aegis continued to hum softly, waiting for the next signal from the stars. They didn't know what form it would take: a ship, a message, a war. But whatever it was, one truth was already written in the silence between worlds: Earth was no longer asleep. The alien ship was gone, but its shadow still lingered over Earth. Even though it had left the solar system, Aegis knew it had not truly gone. It had only stepped back to watch from a safer distance. The galaxy was curious now, and curiosity from powerful beings was always dangerous. On the surface, life went on as usual. People still lived their lives, unaware that their planet had become a mystery whispered about in alien councils. They looked up at the stars and wondered if someone was out there. None of them knew that the answer had already come and gone. Deep underground, Aegis was not celebrating. They were working harder than ever. The quiet encounter with the alien probe and the strange ship had proven that their existence could not remain hidden forever. The galaxy had seen a glimpse of humanity's secret strength. Now it was only a matter of time before they came again, this time not to observe but to test. The halls of Aegis buzzed with silent energy. Screens flickered with readings from across the planet: gravitational waves, magnetic fields, and radiation patterns. Every tiny disturbance in space was being tracked. Aegis wanted to know if more ships were coming, or if the Council was preparing something else. For weeks there was nothing unusual. But then one night something strange appeared. A beam of light, not visible to human eyes, touched Earth's atmosphere for only a second. It came from deep space beyond any known route. It wasn't a weapon or a scan. It was a signal, brief and coded, aimed directly at the same point where Aegis had sent its first hidden message months earlier. Someone was answering. The signal was weak but structured. It contained a pattern, similar to the one Aegis had used to speak silently to the stars. The team began decoding it carefully. The translation took hours, then days. When the message finally became clear, the room went silent. The message said, "We know you are awake." There was no threat, no greeting, only acknowledgement. Aegis understood immediately what it meant. The galaxy wasn't ignoring Earth anymore. Someone out there, maybe not even the Council itself, had decided to make contact, but not in the open. It was a quiet message between watchers. The people of Aegis debated how to respond. Should they send another pulse? Should they stay silent? The risk of speaking again was high. If the wrong group received it, Earth could draw attention from powers far beyond imagination. But if they ignored it, the silence could be taken as weakness. After long discussions, they decided to answer, but carefully. This time, they didn't use Earth's magnetic field. Instead, they hid the response inside a natural radio burst from the sun. It was the perfect cover. Every observatory in the galaxy would think it was just another solar flare. Their message was simple. We remember who watches us. It was short, subtle, and clear enough to send a warning. Earth saw, and Earth remembered. While Aegis sent their hidden signals, something else began to unfold far away in the galaxy. The Council had gathered once again, this time under a cloud of growing fear. Rumors about Earth had spread through countless worlds. Traders whispered that the humans had developed invisible fleets. Soldiers claimed Earth had hidden weapons buried in its oceans. None of it was confirmed, but fear rarely waited for proof. The Council's leaders demanded answers. They sent more observers to study Earth's past, to understand how such a young species could stay invisible for so long. What they found only deepened the mystery. They saw a planet that had survived endless disasters, disease, war, famine, destruction, yet somehow each time humanity came back stronger. Where other species would have collapsed, humans adapted. They rebuilt, reshaped, and returned with more determination than before. Some of the Council's historians began to call humans the stubborn ones, but others gave them a different name, the unpredictable. That word spread quickly. It described what the galaxy now felt about Earth. The humans were unpredictable because no one could predict what they would do next. They had survived their own chaos, and now, even the calm and order of the galaxy seemed uncertain in their presence. Back on Earth, Aegis received new readings, multiple sources moving around the edge of the solar system. This time they weren't probes or single crafts. There were several ships spread apart, keeping distance like hunters watching their prey. Aegis stayed calm. They didn't react. They wanted the galaxy to see what it expected to see, a normal world full of noise and confusion. Every television broadcast, every internet connection, every satellite transmission continued as usual. Humanity's daily life became the perfect disguise. While the alien ships studied Earth's signals, all they saw was traffic, laughter, music, and endless arguing. It was a storm of meaningless sound to them. They couldn't tell that inside that noise, Aegis was whispering in silence. To the alien ships, it looked like Earth was just as chaotic as before. They saw no fleets, no defense systems, no visible threats. Some began to doubt the danger that had been reported. Maybe it had all been a misunderstanding. Maybe Earth really was weak after all. But deep inside the oceans, in places no human eye had ever seen, the truth was much different. Hidden under miles of water, Aegis had built something extraordinary, a vast structure that moved like a living machine. It wasn't a base or a weapon, it was a guardian. The machine stretched across the sea floor, using the planet's magnetic field to cloak itself. It could feel every change in the water, every sound from above. It had been designed for one purpose, to protect Earth's heart without ever being seen. When the alien ships scanned the planet, their signals hit the oceans first. But instead of reflecting data back, the Guardian swallowed the waves, bending and breaking them apart. To the observers, the readings came back blank, as if Earth's oceans were empty of life and energy. They didn't realize the oceans were hiding the largest defense structure ever built by human hands. Aegis watched as the alien ships moved closer, testing Earth's defenses again and again. The humans didn't fight back. They didn't even move. They just listened, recorded, and learned. They were studying the Watchers in return. One evening, a strange thing happened. One of the alien ships fired a thin beam of energy, not an attack but a scan, aimed directly at Earth's surface. The beam was invisible, quiet, and harmless, but Aegis detected it immediately. For a moment, the entire network went still. Should they respond? Should they reveal that they knew? Then came the decision. They let the beam pass, but just as it ended, they sent a gentle pulse back along the same path, echoing the energy perfectly. It was like holding up a mirror and letting the other side see its own reflection. When the alien ship received the echo, its systems froze. No one had ever done that before. From far away, the Council's observers watched the data in disbelief. The humans had answered again, but not in words, in action. It wasn't aggression, but it was a message stronger than any speech. We see you, and we can reach you. The alien ships pulled back instantly, their engines glowing faintly as they retreated toward the edge of the system. Down on Earth, the deep-sea Guardian returned to silence, the pulse fading into the dark water. Aegis didn't celebrate. They only watched the readings disappear one by one, knowing they had just shown the galaxy a small fraction of what humanity could do. But now, they also knew something else. The galaxy wouldn't stop here. Curiosity had turned into fear, and fear would soon turn into preparation. Aegis began its final phase. They no longer planned only to hide, they planned to reveal. Quietly, they started linking their hidden bases together. Underground tunnels were activated, and communication systems connected across continents. They called this phase the Veil. It would allow Earth to reveal its true strength only when the moment was right. The ordinary world above remained unaware. People kept dreaming, building, and hoping. They looked up at the stars and imagined stories about what might be out there, never knowing that those stories were already real. And in the distant chambers of the Galactic Council, the debate continued endlessly. Some said humanity must be destroyed before it could grow stronger. Others said to leave it alone, because a species that could hide such power must also be capable of terrible things if provoked. The galaxy had ruled for thousands of years, but now it had found something it could not control, a world that refused to fit into its rules. The Council's files on Earth were updated again. The old label, Low Threat, was finally erased. A new label replaced it, Unpredictable. Proceed with caution, and somewhere in the dark silence beneath the ocean, Aegis waited. The Earth was quiet. The stars were watching. The next move would belong to the galaxy. For a while, things on Earth looked calm. The alien ships had left the edge of the solar system, and their signals slowly faded away. The skies were quiet again, and Aegis finally had time to breathe. But inside their hidden halls, no one believed the silence would last. They knew too much now. The galaxy had seen them. The Council had changed its label from Low Threat to Unpredictable, and that single word, unpredictable, was enough to make powerful civilizations nervous. Nervous powers never stayed still for long. Aegis understood this very well. That was why the final phase of the Veil project was activated earlier than planned. The idea was simple. Connect all the hidden networks across the planet into one living system, one that could act faster than any human order. It would protect Earth automatically the moment danger came, but the idea was risky. If anything went wrong, the system could reveal itself before it was ready, and once the galaxy saw it, there would be no turning back. The underground chambers were filled with soft blue light as screens flickered with streams of data. Dozens of specialists worked quietly, linking the final nodes of the system together. They were tired but focused. They all knew the truth. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about freedom. Meanwhile, in orbit around a distant red star, the Galactic Council held its longest meeting in years. The hall was full of tension. Dozens of species sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the central hologram showing Earth spinning slowly in the dark. Reports came from scout fleets, from spies, from deep space sensors. None of them could explain how a small, primitive planet could reflect their scans, send back coded pulses, and vanish behind its own electromagnetic noise. Some claimed it was ancient alien technology. Others believed the humans had made a pact with something older and darker. No one agreed, but everyone was afraid. Finally, one of the elder voices in the chamber spoke. It said, "We cannot control what we cannot understand, and if we cannot control it, we must contain it." The decision was made. A containment fleet would be sent to surround the solar system. They would not attack unless provoked, but they would block every route out and monitor every signal. In the Council's mind, it was a reasonable act of safety. But to Aegis, it would soon look like the beginning of a siege. Back on Earth, strange readings appeared again. Energy spikes far beyond the orbit of Pluto. Aegis knew what it meant before even confirming. The Council's fleet was coming. They were cautious this time, moving slowly, hiding their engines, pretending to be natural radiation patterns. But Aegis had learned their methods. Using deep radar hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica, they mapped the entire formation. There were hundreds of ships, small, fast, and heavily shielded. The Council wasn't taking chances anymore. They wanted to make sure that if Earth tried anything unexpected, they could crush it immediately. Aegis held a silent meeting in their central chamber. No one shouted, no one panicked. They all knew this moment was coming. The leader stood in front of the room and said quietly, "They are not here to talk. They are here to cage us, but we will not fight them first. We will let them watch, and what they see will decide their fate." That night, Aegis activated the Veil. All across the planet, deep sensors lit up. Mountains that looked natural began to hum faintly with hidden energy. The ocean stirred as the great guardian beneath the waves reconnected with its partners buried under deserts and jungles. It wasn't a weapon being armed, it was a curtain being raised. To the naked eye, Earth looked normal. But from space, the view began to change. The magnetic field around the planet shifted subtly, bending the paths of charged particles. It became like a mirror, scattering the Council's scans back at them, distorted and unreadable. The alien fleet's instruments started to malfunction. Their computers reported false readings, cities vanishing, oceans moving, continents blinking in and out. It was as if Earth itself was rewriting its image in space. Confusion spread through the fleet. They tried recalibrating their sensors, sending drones, adjusting their energy levels, but nothing worked. Every time they tried to scan Earth, the readings came back different. It was like looking at a dream that refused to stay still. Meanwhile, down below, people went on with their lives. Children played, families worked, the internet buzzed with rumors about strange lights in the sky. No one knew that above their heads the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy were watching in growing fear. The Council's commanders began to argue. Some said to withdraw. Others wanted to launch a test strike on the moon to see how Earth's defenses would react. They didn't want to destroy the planet, just to measure its response. But that idea was dangerous. When Aegis intercepted their communication plans, they made a choice. They couldn't allow a single test. Even a small strike could cause chaos among Earth's people, revealing everything too soon. So they acted quietly. Without firing a single weapon, Aegis sent a signal directly into the Council fleet's communication system. It mimicked their own command codes and changed one small line of data, so small that no one noticed it at first. When the Council fleet prepared to fire a probe, the command failed. Instead, their engines shut down for 3 full minutes. Every ship went dark, floating silently in the void. No alarms. No explosions, just silence. When power returned, every system displayed the same simple message across all their screens: "Leave our home." The fleet's commanders froze. They hadn't sent that message. It came from nowhere, from within their own network. Somehow, Earth had reached inside their systems and spoken to them directly. For the first time in history, the galaxy realized humanity wasn't just hiding behind technology. They were inside it. Panic spread through the Council. They ordered an immediate retreat. The fleet began pulling back slowly, regrouping beyond the outer planets. But as they did, something strange happened again. A faint light appeared near Neptune, soft like a reflection, yet too perfect to be natural. It grew brighter, forming a line of patterns in space. To the Council's sensors, it looked like a massive object rising from the shadows. They tried to scan it, but the data came back meaningless, only one word in their system's translation output: awakened. No one understood what that meant. But deep within Earth's oceans, Aegis knew exactly what was happening. The Veil's Guardian, the same structure that had once cloaked itself under the sea, was now fully connected. It wasn't rising to attack. It was rising to show presence. The entire planet seemed alive now, breathing with the energy of a single mind. In the control chamber, Aegis watched as readings filled their screens. Earth's magnetic field stabilized into a new form, stronger, more unified. It wrapped around the planet like a living shield. "This," said the leader quietly, "is what they called a low threat." The words carried no anger, only calm certainty. Humanity wasn't showing its power to frighten anyone. It was showing that they were not to be underestimated again. Back in the Council chamber, chaos broke out. Reports from the fleet were filled with confusion. Some ships reported seeing shadows moving inside the clouds of Jupiter. Others claimed that their systems were being rewritten by unknown code. None of it made sense. The Council had no choice but to recall their forces. They couldn't risk another failure. Within days, the blockade dissolved. The galaxy stepped back once more, now fully aware that Earth was not what it seemed. But for Aegis, the work was far from over. They knew the Council would not forget. Sooner or later, they would try again, perhaps not with ships, but with influenced spies or silent sabotage. Humanity had taken its first real step into the awareness of the galaxy. The curtain had lifted and the stage was set, and yet the world above still lived in peaceful ignorance. People continued to dream of life beyond the stars, unaware that life beyond the stars was already watching, waiting, and rethinking everything they believed about humans. In the dark ocean depths, the Guardian returned to stillness. The veil shimmered invisibly around Earth. Aegis recorded the final readings and powered down the main network. The leader stood silently, watching the data fade. For a long moment, there was only the soft hum of machines and the rhythm of waves far above. Then the leader said quietly, "They thought they could cage us. They don't realize. Earth was never their cage to build. Far beyond the solar system, in the hidden chambers of the Council, one message echoed again and again through every network. Every species and every world. Earth is unpredictable. Do not provoke." And so the stars that once looked down on a silent blue planet now watched in caution. They had seen a glimpse of what was hidden beneath, and that glimpse was enough to make even the most powerful hesitate. Time passed. Months turned into years and the galaxy stayed quiet. The Council had withdrawn its ships, leaving only distant watchers at the far edge of the solar system. They did not come closer again, not after what they had seen. To the people of Earth, nothing seemed different. Life went on with the same rhythm: morning traffic, evening lights, the laughter of children, and the endless noise of the modern world. But deep beneath the calm surface, Aegis continued its silent work. The veil still stood strong, wrapped around the planet like an invisible shield. It wasn't always active, and it didn't need to be. It rested quietly, drawing power from the planet's core, watching for signs that the galaxy might return. But something was changing. In the Council's hidden archives, new reports began to appear. Unusual signals were spreading through the galaxy, quiet, coded, and impossible to trace. Some said they came from Aegis. Others claimed they were something older, maybe something that Earth had awakened. The Council tried to keep it secret, but word spread fast. Whispers began to move from world to world. The humans are speaking to someone. At first, the Council ignored the rumors. Then, when the signals continued, they sent spies to follow the patterns. They discovered that the signals weren't aimed at any known world. They were traveling deep into dark space, to regions where no civilization had ever settled. The Council didn't understand, but Aegis did. When they activated the veil years ago, it hadn't just protected Earth, it had also reached out. The signal that formed the veil had touched something ancient, something hidden far beyond the stars. Aegis didn't know what it was, only that it responded. The connection was faint, almost like a whisper between two sleeping minds. Whatever it wasn't hostile. It was curious, and that curiosity had become the bridge between Earth and the unknown. Inside the hidden command chambers, the Aegis leader studied the signals every day. The patterns were complex but beautiful, like a language made of light and rhythm. They were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. One evening, as the signal grew stronger, a faint image appeared on their deep space monitors. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a planet. It looked like a structure, vast and motionless, floating in the dark. Aegis scanned it carefully. The readings were ancient, maybe millions of years old. It had no power signature, no movement, yet somehow it responded to their signal, almost like a heart faintly beating after ages of silence. The team called it the Sleeper. They didn't know who built it or why it had answered, but they knew it was connected to the same energy that powered Earth's magnetic field, the same rhythm that gave life to the veil. It was like finding an older reflection of their own creation. Weeks later, the Council detected the same readings. When they realized that the structure was responding to Earth, panic spread again. The galaxy began to question everything it thought it knew. If humans could reach something like that, something buried beyond the galaxy's edge, then maybe they weren't as young or harmless as everyone had believed. The Council called another emergency session. Their voices filled the great chamber once more, echoing across light years through holographic networks. Some argued that Earth had awakened a threat that could end everything. Others believed it was the beginning of a new era. For the first time, they didn't speak of destroying humanity. They spoke of understanding it. They sent a message, not through ships or soldiers, but through a direct communication beam. It was aimed carefully, carrying only one sentence. Earth, we request peace and understanding. Aegis received the signal instantly. For a long moment, no one moved. The message was simple but heavy with meaning. After centuries of silence and fear, the galaxy was finally speaking, not to command, not to threaten, but to ask. Aegis debated for hours about how to respond. Some wanted to stay silent, to remain hidden. Others believed it was time. Humanity had been underestimated, mocked, and feared. But now maybe they could be seen for what they truly were: survivors, builders, dreamers. Finally, they agreed on a single answer. They didn't send it as a grand speech or a long message. They used the same quiet method that had begun everything, a signal hidden within Earth's natural field. It traveled calmly into space, carrying humanity's simple truth: we seek peace, but we will not kneel. The message reached the Council's core worlds days later. When they read it, no one spoke. The words were direct, humble but firm, the kind of message that couldn't be mistaken for arrogance or weakness. It carried the voice of a world that had suffered, learned, and endured. A world that had seen the stars not as masters, but as equals. The Council finally understood. For the first time in history, they recorded Earth not as a minor planet, not as a primitive race, but as a sovereign world, a civilization to be respected. The label unpredictable was removed from the archives. A new word replaced it: independent. But the story didn't end there. As peace slowly spread across the galaxy, strange things began to happen. The sleeper, the ancient structure that had awakened, started sending new signals. They weren't directed at Aegis or the Council. They were spreading outward across every corner of the galaxy like ripples in water. Each signal carried the same pattern, the same rhythm that had once pulsed from Earth's core. It was as if the universe itself was answering the planet's call. Scientists across hundreds of worlds began to notice. Stars near the edge of the galaxy shifted slightly, pulsars changed their timing, and distant magnetic fields began to hum with new energy. No one could explain it. But Aegis knew. They understood that the veil had never been just a defense system. It had been a connection, a bridge between living worlds, between energy and thought, between the known and the unknown. Maybe humanity hadn't created it entirely. Maybe they had simply reawakened something that had been waiting all along. And as the galaxy watched, Earth glowed faintly against the darkness, wrapped in a shimmering field of light invisible to most eyes. Above the surface, ordinary people went about their lives unaware that their planet had quietly changed the course of galactic history. Children still played under the same sun. Artists painted, scientists dreamed, and explorers looked to the stars with hope instead of fear. In the deep ocean chamber, Aegis watched the last readings from the sleeper fade away. The leader stood in silence, feeling the weight of it all. The journey that began with fear had ended with connection. Humanity had faced the unknowns and chosen to rise, not hide. Outside, the stars seemed a little closer. The galaxy no longer whispered about Earth as a low threat. They spoke of it as something far more mysterious, a world that had awakened its own power without losing its humanity. Ships from distant worlds began to approach carefully, not with weapons but with curiosity. They came to learn, to share, to listen, and humanity, cautious but proud, opened the door just enough to let them see who they truly were. Aegis didn't disband. It simply changed its purpose. It became a bridge between worlds, teaching the next generation how to protect peace, not just with strength but with understanding. As the years went by, one truth became clear to everyone across the stars. Humanity wasn't dangerous because of their weapons or machines. They were powerful because of something deeper: their spirit, their unity, and their refusal to surrender no matter how impossible things seemed. The galaxy finally realized what they had missed all along. The real power hidden beneath Earth was not metal or energy. It was the human heart, and that heart, once awakened, could never again be called a low threat. The stars watched silently as the blue planet turned slowly in space, glowing softly under the warmth of its sun. The age of fear had ended. The age of respect had begun. Somewhere far beyond sight, the sleeper drifted quietly, its final signal fading into the dark. It was a single, simple message, one that only humanity could understand. You were never alone. And for the first time in the galaxy's long history, that message was true.